see yourself leaving Islam in the future? Could I ever see myself leaving Islam in the future? What an odd question. I don't see myself leaving Islam in the future. Obviously, look, faith is, there's two things. One, we don't know the future about anything. And two, these things are always, from a faith perspective, up to Allah. But I don't believe that, to me, Islam makes a lot of sense. It is something that makes sense for somebody like me. It does make sense. I do see it as built upon reason, unlike other people. So, and if I saw Islam to be unreasonable, and if I believed it was unreasonable, I wouldn't be a part of it. But I believe it to be reasonable. I believe it to be built on reason. I believe it to have strengthened my life in so many ways that, I kind of believe that God, watches over me, in that, as I'm sure all of you believe as well, or hope many of you on here. But I believe that, about my own life and my own journey. And, it says, Ghalib says in his, I have that as a poem written on, in my living room downstairs on the wall, framed, that couplet of Ghalib, where he says, जिंदगी अपनी जब इस शक्ल से गुजरी गालिब हम भी क्या याद करेंगे कि खुदा रखते थे. That, having seen all the vicissitudes, the ups and downs, and the stages that life has taken us through, all we can say, Ghalib, is that God favored us. It's like, and I that really, as a person, and each person can only do this for themselves. Like, I can't do this for you, but if you reflect, you will see that resonate, that kind of, that touch of God watching over that, in your life. All the from the tiny blessings to the amazing, overwhelming blessings that you've had in your life. And I'm sure that if you think about them, there's so many, but there's things that you think that, wow, that, if had I even planned this, it couldn't have worked out so well. I remember, when before I went to study, when I was just about 17, I began working in an Islamic bookstore in Birmingham. I used to work I had a job as I'd finished college, because the college degree, it wasn't a degree, but it was the NVQ qualifications. The way we had them is, as soon as you finish your portfolio, you finish the course. So it doesn't have to run for 2 years. It could be done in 2 years, or 1 year, or 1.5 years. So once I finished that, I was working in an insurance brokerage. But then as I got more and more infatuated with the deen, I left and I worked in an Islamic bookshop. It was Islamic Vision, those of you that remember it. It was in Birmingham, in Small Heath, and the place now, it was IDCI, but it was the old kind of shop, the Ahmadi, that thing. But that gave me access to a lot of Islamic books and lectures as well. But I remember at the time there was this, when I got more serious in the months that were coming at that time, and I wanted to study the deen, I took a book by, and I met the author later on, by the way, in years to come, Ahmed Thompson, amazing person. But this book, I took this book of his called The Difficult Journey, and in it, it's basically a book about, I read this back then in the 90s, so, if I mess up the narrative, it's, I can be excused, it's been so long. But it's basically about these guys who want to go on Hajj, and what they do is they do a complete kind of, like, they just go on a mission, like they want to go by road, and just, they have very little means. They don't have much money. They don't have many, they don't know whether it's going to happen or not. And I think it's based it's real life events. Ahmed Thompson is a Muslim from, I believe, Norwich, or he may have been from London. He's a convert to Islam, and he may have been, I don't know whether he was a lawyer or something, but he had a professional background. So he sets off on this journey, and they just have something like a few pounds, and they traveled somewhere to Europe, and they're just kind of grafting, and they're getting from A to B to C, and the paths are just like, there's a point where I think they land in Egypt or something, and it's almost impossible, but they get away with it. And I remember reading this before I went to study, and at the time I would just carry this book with me, and I was just reading through it, and I drew so much inspiration, not so much about the actual, they were going to do Hajj. I was obviously thinking of going to study, but of the fact that God works in amazing ways. And there was a line from that book where he says that, when he's reminiscing about everything, how it kind of unfolded, and he said that, if I owned the whole universe, I couldn't have planned it as perfectly as it happened. Like the way God designed it to unfold, I couldn't have done that if I had complete control over everything. I still, it wouldn't have been as perfect, as amazing. That's what I mean by perfect. Obviously there's problems. And that really struck me, that phrase, that sentence, this meaning that he was conveying in the book. And I gotta say, and I drew courage from it, and I went off, because I was only young. I was just 17, just going on 18, and I went off to study. And I have to say, in my own life, the way things have mapped out, have unfolded, and it's not to say that there's been, major problems and things like that all along the way, but still, the way things have happened, I have to say that it's been, it's amazing how Allah has been there. And I'm sure that's the same with you guys as well. If you think about it, and it's not to mean that, I don't mean by that for a second that it was easy, that there were a lot of difficulties, when I went off, or even in life in general, whether it was the struggles, whether it was at times finances or health, or falling ill, or being stranded, or just facing resistance, facing hardship, facing people who are awkward. I mean, all of these things, hitting a mental block. There was a time when I was trying to memorize the Quran, and I remember I was on, I think, Juz 11, and I hit a mental block. No matter what I did, it just was not happening. And I remember, it went on for a week, and but it was debilitating at the time. But then, alhamdulillah, I got over it. But what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter what it was, that you get through it. You understand? That, that kind of emotion, that will, the one thing that people underestimate, the human will to kind of persevere. That, like in the poem, that ए जज्बा दिल गर मैं चाहूं हर चीज मुकाबिल आ जाए मंजिल के लिए दो गाम चलूं और सामने मंजिल आ जाए. That, if that he says that the passion of the heart, that if the heart is determined, the will to get something, then the destination will be in front of you. That all you have to do is take 2 steps, and it will automatically, things will just, the path, the way will just open up for you. So for me, this relationship with Allah is a very personal one. It's not something that, it's not something which is built on superstition. It's not something which is just built on, because I was born a Muslim in that sense. So it is a very personal relationship. It's something, and it's like any journey, it's a turbulent. From this side, it's obviously, being human, we're going to be bewafa. We're not going to be loyal. That's the human hallmark, is being unloyal. And I think on so many occasions I've personally, I would say I've been like that. I've been very rebellious in that sense towards, even, if I can have the audacity to say, towards God, even, it's been a very, and it still is, as always, but still, and that's the amazing thing, that it doesn't matter sometimes, as much as I've rebelled sometimes, even against God in that understanding, if I can use these terms, but yet you still, it doesn't matter, أَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا, that wherever you then turn, فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, that you still find Allah there. You still find that things come together. And that is amazing. I've at times tried to test things, and and I'm sure other people have done it too, and even test with reason, you understand, like certain arguments, and take them. But it's amazing how it, each time it's never kind of folded. It never. So, this is a very intimate kind of relationship, I feel, and I advise everybody to have their own personal relationship with God like that. I don't think, it's not, for me, like, everybody's different, you see. Like, I don't consider myself to be like a very kind of that kind. It depends what you mean by religious, but that, like, I don't pray really nafal or things like, barely just the barely just the fara'id. I don't keep voluntary fasts, and I don't do things like that. I mean, I'm just being honest. And maybe some people, they're cut out like that. They do things like that. But I do enjoy the tradition of Islam. I enjoy, like, I don't just enjoy, it's not just me gusta, it's me encanta. I love it. The whole, I'm overwhelmed by the deen on that level, in that capacity, and how just the message it gives of humanity, and then pondering over it. To me, that's my kind of thing. And I try to, you see, one thing I try to do is to have a clean heart. I mean, it's never going to be totally clean, obviously. The Pakistani gene will always be influencing the corruption, but it's, I try to have that compassion towards humanity. And I think that, what could be greater than that? And to me, that is like one of the greatest messages of this theme. There's a poet, Nida, I think, is it Nida Fazli, who said in one of his poems, he said something, it's kind of, it doesn't come clearly to mind, but in there, the message, he says that, he says, today we made a child laugh. Like, says, "Bacche ko hasa diya aaj," and he says, like, what is, and he says, I can't think of any act of worship greater than that, and that resonates with me, you see. So this is, I think it's an important message for people in a time where they're becoming confounded by a lot of doubt surrounding religion. That religion, faith, is not in the legal edicts of the clergy. Faith is what resides in your heart, in your connection, in your understanding that Allah is there for you, in your time of need, that solace that you find, in that motivation to be there for humanity, in to give in charity, in to help, in to make someone smile. That is really faith. It's not in the legal edicts of the mullah or the clergies, and I'm not belittling the kind of fatwa. Obviously, I'm a part of that tradition. I love that tradition, but that is not where what will establish your iman. That will just, that's just fun. It's fun to learn. That's all it is. So I hope that's of some maybe hearing these words, it resonates with some people, and it gives them some maybe some inspiration, inshallah.